Hey everybody, welcome to the Enhance Your World show. I'm your co-host, Chris Alba. Lorcan may be joining us a little later on. We haven't been able to um, connect our schedules this afternoon, this morning. Our show today, we're going to talk about from surviving to enhancing using gauge principles. These are universal principles. You've heard us talk a lot about this over the show and over the decade of me walking as an enhancer um, of the human experience or consciousness or however you choose to label things. And that comes from both realizing that there is no wrong step to moving forward. We only make left and right steps. And so we need to learn from our missteps so we can walk in a better way for ourselves as well as those that we relate to beyond what seems to be ourself, our planet, those types of things. So it's a big thing when we talk about unconditional love and how to um, walk an authentic path because the challenge with walking an authentic path is each one of us has an authentic path. So if we are telling someone how they need to be or how they need to show up um, based on our knowledge, our experience, our ways, then we may be unconsciously projecting um, onto them. However, to you know truly unconditionally love someone is to create the opportunity to or portal or doorway or pathway or whatever label you want to use really to step into who it is that they want to become. And when we can provide opportunities and safe places for them to express their true selves of the things that they've carried within themselves that they haven't felt safe to share with other people, to allow that to be expressed outwardly, and then um, compassionately move from the past through the present of now into another future, another timeline, if you will. So the gauge principles of gratitude, awareness, unity, growth, and energy are the ones that I use for myself, as well as those that I walk with as a guide or a mentor or whatever label. Um, and, trying to use these universal, not even trying, but using these universal principles. The number one thing is of gratitude. We hear it in all walks of life. And a lot of people will talk about, gratitude is the greatest response of being able to receive. And the challenge sometimes is being grateful for those challenges that we don't want or we don't like, or that skew our perception of we're doing the best that we can. These limited beliefs that keep us comfortable, these limited things that keep us separated. A few years ago when I moved back to my family's property, I was in a relationship and I was expressing to her the importance of me healing the relationship with my father and my mother, and that was why I was there, more than anything else. Now, of course, I wanted to also take advantage of or use the resources that were provided by being there, such as the space and the acreage, which we do with retreats and ceremonies and gatherings and all those different things. And for a lot of years, I did all my healing exclusively from there, only to 6 months ago open up the wellness center in Newport, based on people's desire to connect easier, and have a more central location, because I lived more south than the Cincinnati marketplace, and people were looking for space to heal from and all that kind of stuff. So, it made sense for us to step into this. And that's where the awareness comes in. That's where the unity comes in. That's where the growth comes in. And of course, it took energy. It took financial energy. It took time energy. It took mental thought and preparation, a lot of time and energy, um, putting together the website and the community and putting on these shows. Hi, Larkin. How are you?
I'm good. We were double logging in again. How are you?
Oh, did we do that again?
I was working on it. I'm like, I think I checked, and here you were already on there.
Oh,
Go ahead,
wonderful.
please.
So I was just sharing a little bit about how the gauge principles, the universal principles of gratitude, awareness, unity, growth, and energy, have helped me grow through the situations that seemed that I needed to survive through, to really understanding, um, when we nourish the soil, the seed can express itself fully.
Yeah.
Rather than, just giving it just the bare necessities. I guess that is a good way to sum up the first few minutes.
It always makes me think of Jungle Book. It's a good way
Yeah.
to remember it. The bare necessities,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
You know,
foolish
and
things.
and I'm so grateful for being able to learn, what the bare necessities are of having just enough, even if it's just a meal, and maybe you don't know where your next meal is going to, when it's going to come, or how it's going to come, or what it's going to look like. But having the faith to move forward anyway in a good way is where I think a lot of the spiritual, this is a deepening of things, but where I think a lot of the surrender aspect of spirituality comes from. But something that I'm discerning for myself, Larkin, is, and I shared this with someone earlier, and I haven't really shared this with many people, so it's weird that I'm already putting it out live. But it's not that I haven't been aware of my gifts and abilities. It's that I never wanted to attach to the identity of them, because sometimes that traps us, right? Um, in a, a limited belief of how it's supposed to look, or how it's supposed to work, or how it's supposed to feel, and why we're in the woulda, coulda, shouldas. We lose presence, and it's not until the tower moments where we are completely brought to our knees, and do we realize, like, oh, I just got to get back up again. Like, and all these false things that we've created, reasons and logic and stories. Like, that's why I don't like talking politics with people, because they're far more educated in the what's currently going on than I am about what's being perpetuated, because I don't have the energy or the time to stay that tuned into it, and I just don't feel like I can do much with it, the energy of knowing what the headlines are, or the stories that are on the news. Like, I'm trying to focus on, like, what I can do as a human being, where I'm at, and having faith that that stuff's going to work itself out in the long run.
Well, I think this is such a big and beautiful blossoming topic.
Mm-hmm.
And before I respond, I just want to remind everyone, because I'm speaking for Chris and I both. We've not done a very good job of promoting this program. We just haven't. We need to get better, because otherwise you won't know we're here. But we do have a YouTube page. So for those of you who are, we kind of are limited in how many streams we can have here. So if you guys are listening, or people that value this and they want to join our YouTube page, I'm going to post it in the link, and I'm going to post it on my Facebook profiles. Hopefully Chris will do the same. So you guys can like and follow that and help us grow that there. Because there's some other advantages to us having a platform there. So we'd love it if you guys joined us there as well. I want to hop in on a couple things that you said, Chris, that are really pertinent. I think it's very, it's, what do I want to say? The level of our consciousness is, for example, for you, it's a token of your conscious awareness that you're making one choice in order not to identify as something else. And I think that even though it's a positive thing, it's a good thing that you'd be identifying as. If you look at all of our great, even modern teachers, if you look at, what Eckhart Tolle teaches, you find that, he talks in depth about identity, because becoming aware of the observer behind your thoughts also allows you to disidentify. But I want to add a little balance, I think, to your comment that maybe will help people, and maybe not. Maybe some people aren't thinking what you're thinking. Maybe they're not even concerned about how they identify right now. Because how we're using the term identify in our modern world is not what Chris and I are referring to. That term's being used a lot as far as identifying our sexuality, identifying our ethnic background, identifying what social groups we want to be in. But that's not what we're referring to. There's a deeper level of identifying, right? And when our soul comes into this world, now hear me out here. We must identify in order to have a human experience. Okay, we must identify. I'm going to take this kind of in layers. So, and some of you have heard me say this before, but I think this is really significant to view yourself this way so that you can choose what frame of consciousness you want to be in if you have that choice, right? If you're aware that you have the choice, then you have the choice. Your soul, that's eternal consciousness. Forever and ever, always has been. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. All energy is conscious. Then you're born and you have this brain, which if you didn't have this physical brain, your physical body wouldn't function. Your autonomic nervous system wouldn't function. You wouldn't be breathing. Your kidneys wouldn't function. Your liver wouldn't function. You wouldn't automatically blink. You'd have to think every time you wanted to breathe and blink, right? So we have to have this eternal soul consciousness I should do it this way for you guys, eternal soul consciousness and your brain. But what's in the middle? See, what connects the two is, I'll use my gum, is the mind.
It worked perfect before because your head was in the between.
Oh, was it? Oh, right. Okay, there you go. See, self-awareness, right? So this is what connects the two. Eternal consciousness, brain. When you are in human form, if you choose to be human, you must have all three. So what happens is if someone goes into a coma state, let's say, for example, scientifically, we can look and say, okay, well, they're still there, but they're unconscious because they're asleep. I love science, guys. I'm a science person. Science and spirituality are not mutually exclusive. And on both ends, we're falling short. When we try to stretch out into the spiritual or the non-physical and the metaphysical, when we try to stretch into the science, we're still learning there, right? So science can't prove it. It really has no idea what consciousness is right now. It still identifies being awake as being conscious, and that's not true.
What's the horizon that we're always walking towards, right? Like if we had it figured out, then what would be the purpose?
Well, it's not figured out because it is who and what we are here, and it is not in the tangible. So anyway, this connector, guys, is the egoic self. But it is also the self that allows the eternal spiritual consciousness to embody the body, to animate the body. So when Chris is talking about identifying as, there's this sense of who he is as a soul. eternally following that. And then there's this trying to figure it out and make all these hard decisions we have to logically, right? Neurologically, physiologically, using our prefrontal cortex. That's the brain part. So it's that mind part that's so, and that's really the part we're talking about. But the thing is that while you're here in this world, you have such a limited time to play that role. And if you don't choose, if when you become aware of it, like Chris is, you don't choose, you're still choosing. Because we have to remember the being part. So you choose whatever is most in alignment with the being part. Perhaps in order for Chris to fulfill the role, now that I'll say that he even believes he's here to fulfill,
Right.
which is the mind. Okay, the brain is allowing, the mind, the brain is thinking what the mind is believing and where it's going, right? The brain is allowing you to act on that. But you have to. If you come and you are like, I'm here to bring joy to the world and make people laugh, but you say, oh, I don't want to identify as a comedian. I don't want to identify as a person that's up in front of people. And my question to you would be, so you're still choosing. So what are you choosing? And are you choosing to take advantage of the tools that you have to do what you believe you've come here to do? Now, another way of looking at that is you have to play some sort of role. Let's say we'll use Chris as an example. Let's say he didn't want to identify as that. And he ends up identifying as a bum on the street, collecting change and giving it to all the other homeless people. He's still identifying, isn't he? And someone says to him, well, Chris, why are you here on the street? And so you shared all these big dreams. Why didn't you do that? And he says, well, I didn't want to identify with these gifts.
But at the same time, I'm still sharing the same gift, just in a different way.
That's true, but it's a choice.
It's always a choice.
But think and look of the impact in the experience. It's a choice.
Right.
But still, if the whole reason I like building money and building wealth and building my quote unquote legacy that you hear all the wealthy, successful people talk about, those people out there working down in the dirt who don't know money, who have a poor money mindset, who don't want to maybe do some of the things that a wealthy person would do, they'd say, well, Larkin, that's just selfish. Why don't you can do your purpose without money? Okay, well, sure I can. Let's say I want to have a huge animal sanctuary. It's a choice. Do I want to do what I did years ago in an international youth group and go to, go writing, spending all my life basically writing grants to get money for that? These are just choices, guys. There's no right or wrong here. But think about it. One is more empowering and one is disadvantaging. One, I can count on lots of donors and be dependent on that and have my identity start to adopt that insecurity and that worry because I'm struggling to keep that sanctuary alive for those animals. And then guess what? I'm identifying with the worry, with the stress. I'm not saying there's not if you're wealthy. Or could I go about it and build my own wealth for that and not be dependent on others? It's an identity choice. Sure, it's an identity choice. But I will throw this out there. You are more empowered when you have more resources at your own fingertips. And I want to throw this in there too before I turn this back over to Chris, because this is something people don't understand. When I coach, excuse me, abundance mindset, I can't tell you how many people I say that come to me and say, but Jesus was poor. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. Do your historical and biblical research. He had He had assistants and people waiting on him hand and foot. He traveled with donkeys and other animals. Do you guys know that was like having a I don't know, one of those SUV limousines at the time, having a donkey. He had connections. So what we see and we're taught the rebel outcast part. We see and we're shown his humbleness. We ignore that there was abundance always at flow. So if those of you that are looking for the Christian background of things, even Jesus had to identify. Even the Dalai Lama has to identify. The closest thing we come to trying not to identify is probably like the Maharishi, who would literally, maintained his spiritual garb, basically. Only ate when necessary. Gandhi did the same thing. Gandhi's another example. Gandhi had to identify. And yet both of them spoke very little. They weren't wealthy. They had a big impact. But in this physical world, if you want to have an impact, no matter what it is, it could be teeny, it could be I'm going to save the ants running down the sidewalk. It's not, you want to disidentify from the egoic self, but not from the soul manifesting through. So you have to, we don't discard the mind, we learn to use it. And that means you choose to identify. If you don't choose to identify, then the mind is running you. If you are very intentional, we do this with intention. We do this with self-discipline. We do this with silence and awareness. When you apply those three things, then you don't have to worry about the identifying, because you are choosing. Okay. And there are lots of holes in what I said, because all this can't be summarized right here and now. But what I would invite you guys to do is, you get off of here today, maybe even journal it, use index cards. I have my clients use index cards. I would get off of here and ask yourself, who I identify that I am, in alignment with what I feel my purpose is. I'm sorry, I'm dragging on here, but you don't have to feel like you have a purpose either. Everybody's obsessed with their purpose. Why do you have to know your purpose? I'll tell you how you know if you're in alignment. If you feel at peace, if you feel fulfilled, if you feel joyful, and if you love what you do, because those four things are what you are as source energy, at not a mood you're in. They're who and what you are. So those are your signals. You're in alignment. And if to you that means you identify with, I have a life purpose, because all humans want a purpose, then so be it. I like your hat, Chris.
Thanks.
I love that hat. My dad always wore he has a whole collection of such cool hats like that.
Yeah. Great. It's been around the world with me, so
that's
cool.
Great. Where'd you get that one?
Huh?
Where'd you get that hat?
The hat itself, I actually went through a process of ordering like 6 or 7 of them through Amazon.
Oh, wonderful.
And then just this was the one that was the best fit, so I just went with it.
That's great.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to be commercial, because you can do the different options and not have to wait for it to show up. But yeah, I mean, it's always enough. It's funny because I have a lot of family members that are very financially well off, however you want to label that. And while they have more options, they still live the same way. They still concern themselves with the same things. Um,
You do, absolutely.
and it's just the difference between, when I've had, more financial resources than not having enough to cover your bills is an ease, and a sense of peace, because we've all been conditioned to be afraid to live on the streets, to be afraid to go through pain and misery. And I know you and I have studied a lot of leaders and people that have changed their stars and all that, and not one of them goes through that transformation without a level of adversity. I mean, Robert Kiyosaki and his wife lived in their car instead of paying their rent, because they needed one or the other, and they figured they could live in their car and still drive their car. They couldn't drive their apartment, so they had to make choices. Eckhart Tolle lived on a street bench, and all those different things, because it allows us to be an outsider to what we've always been conditioned to see. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't know true empathy until I went through a similar experience, and then I truly understand what it's like to go through some things. Otherwise, it's a sympathy where I'm trying to relate, and that's where I feel these universal principles are valuable, because it doesn't say you're supposed to do this or you do that, and everybody has their good and their bad qualities, if you want to say that, or their left and right legs. That's balance. There's the whole perspective of humanity, and it's important that you said something very wise. There's great empowerment in having resources. And it's been my experience, when you don't know how to handle that level of resources, it can be just as destructive as constructive. You get to see your true self, um, and what you're capable of when you don't have to worry about things. It's all beautiful contrast. Um, and I think that's why unity, or all these other polarities and things, words that we use, you know can point to things, but it's amazing heard we can how heard we can feel by not even saying anything.
Absolutely.
Just being in someone's presence or getting a hug from somebody, like, you can melt the tightness or the rigidity or the fear or the anxiety, or any of those things, by a stranger passing by us with a smile. And at least for me, that's my identity. um that's how I focus my energy, is like, how am I showing up in each and every interaction that I have, with myself and each other, with other people, um, and all the other things. um, they're a part of it, and that's been something that I haven't talked much about lately, um, due to a lot of deep, deep, deep introspection, um, and then realizing that, the only thing that shows up in my life, like the other day, Larkin, I was challenged with somebody here at the center who made a lot of promises, and wasn't able to to hold up to them. And instead of getting frustrated or taking it, it was just like, this is how we can move forward, from here on out. Like, we're going to have to shift some things, because I cannot continue to hold the vessel for everybody to just show up when they feel like it, because I don't have the ability to do that right now. And so I have to make these changes for the good of the community, not necessarily for me personally, because personally I wanted to be able to, you know, pay for everything myself, take care of it, and everybody just show up when they want, and la di da, and wouldn't that be lovely? But like when there isn't that standard or expectation, you know, and it sucks, you know, honestly, to have to sit down and go, I'm raising my prices, you know, because people aren't valuing me for the time and the energy and whatever I'm giving them at the moment, because it's not hurting them financially, um, in a way to make them pay attention. Um, so does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I see that little smirk in your face because I know we've talked about this a lot.
I'm thinking about that, and I'm looking at Karen's comment. I'm thinking about how people are taking our conversation about money.
Sure.
Anyway, go on. We'll get to both of those.
Um, you know, and I mean, and the reason that I'm bringing all this up is that, you know, divine timing, right? Like when we're able to maintain a level of consistency and energy within our own frequency without getting distracted, without running, you know, like if you have a limited piggy bank, you know, and I have family members that are close to that, when any something happens to them, they have to go to a getaway at some exotic resort, um, to recuperate. Um, you know, and that's awesome. That's what they're able to do. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I ask challenging questions like, well, how can you recover yourself and regain your energy and your well-being and all that without having to do that? Because there's a greater impact in play. You know, like the everything is energy. So how are we using our energy consciously and unconsciously? You know, and it can be challenging, um and damn near impossible to say that there's a universal way that we all humans can live. But you know, I follow a man or a leader, or however, you know, the Mamos, from the Koji tribe, and these guys are amazing, and they only ever ask for what they need to do whatever the next thing is. You know, they never have enough. They haven't been conditioned through the economic systems to have money and investments and foundations and, you know, all these things to draw on. So it is a constant thing of like, they just released the video this this year that, Mama Lorenzo, who's going to be at our property and or at the retreat center in June, you know, is responsible for repairing his parents' roof, and it cost $5,000 to do that. So they had to put a crowdfunding together, you know, and within a few weeks, you know, he was able to obtain the money they needed to repair the roofs, which is another form of abundance, because you can't spend, you know, energy is always in movement. You can't hold on to it. So it's even the millionaires and the people that I know, their money is all tied up in investments and things that they're doing, which is just another form of energy. Um, and they've earned that level of being able to efficiently maintain that level of energy, and that's why they've been able to maintain that lifestyle. And those of us that maybe didn't get that opportunity to learn how to do that, or have taken the leap of faith to learn how to do those in certain ways, um, haven't developed the abilities yet to respond in everything's enough. Like my parents saved their whole life, did everything, invested all the things. Now, at the turn of the circumstances, their thought pattern has changed because of current what's going on. They didn't plan 40 years ago when they were sitting down figuring out how much money they needed for retirement that gas prices were going to be what they were. Like, and inflation was going to be what it was, and all those lovely things. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to sit with them and say, yeah, but you've acquired what you have. So how can we use this in a way that we can continue on in a good way? And that's how I've been able to hold retreats, why I've been able to create this and hold space for this wellness center, why we figured it out, because they made sacrifices that I didn't have to, because they did. And I didn't have that opportunity 10 years ago when I started this process. But through all the work over these years has lent them to see me in a different way. And that's what I'm trying to point to, is how to enhance from surviving. It's nice to have the means to take care of what needs to be taken care of without having to ask others for it. And it's very humbling, and it's a very great privilege when someone recognizes the hard work and effort that you've made and supports you in ways that you're not able to support yourself. And money seems to be an easy way to do that. I sat on boards, great charities, and their only concern was how to make more money, because they had the mentoring part figured out, but they were worried about how to sustain financially so they could continue out their mission. And I had a hard time understanding that at that time, because all of us that were donating our time and energy to helping were being looked at as another way for them to make money, rather than seeing us as part of the team and seeing how we coming together could actually help the mission and the movement of helping under, at-risk youth through their challenges, other than just providing a building that they could come play basketball and get their homework done at. It's just my perspective. Skewed, not, whatever. It is where I am at this moment. I'll be different some later in another way, but in this moment of recording, this is where I'm at.
So I think it's very interesting because, I hadn't intended on talking about money at all today, but yeah, money. I've been coaching money mindset for over 15 years.
Sure.
And I think it's very interesting because I've been on both sides. I've been both on the homeless end and both on the, I can do whatever I want today, buy whatever I want. Let me grab that ticket and go to Italy for the day.
Right.
And buy whatever I want. Let me go to Harrods and buy whatever I want. I think we do have to remember something that you mentioned before, which is, money is just energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the most obvious thing I find is, first of all, there's always stigma. People get like, they have their opinions whenever we start to talk about money. You immediately see where people are in their money mindset. Not that anyone is right or wrong. We have to remember it's just energy. But for those on the not having unlimited resources money-wise end of the spectrum, it's very easy to get caught up in looking at the negatives of those that do, to go into the experiences of, well, this person denied us this, or, that person just saw us as resources to make money. And that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should talk about that for a minute, because this is the danger. This is why a lot of people, a lot of spiritual leaders and teachers, a lot of people that you work with, Chris, or would be training with or looking up to as mentors, would choose not to have. But really, the smartest choice is not to choose not to have the money. It's to choose to do something with it aside from maybe your own life, right? There are people that do that, and they drive their cars humbly, they dress like everyone else.
Yeah.
They don't do anything special. They literally just use their finances for what they want and need. The worry and stress is, yes, it is still there, but it is different.
Right.
So I think the biggest thing that I think people who don't have money, looking at people who have money, are missing, yes, the effort is going to be the same. The getting out of the comfort zone, the getting over the humps, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you can say, I had a friend growing up whose parents were very wealthy. And, I had to defend her because, people would say, when we do our zoo groups, like, she has more opportunities than we do. No, they don't have more opportunities than we do. They don't have more opportunities than you do. They have a different mindset. And so they recognize opportunities that people without money don't. That's one of the things that gets you over the hump. And guys,
Well, and also we have access to places that, let's face it, if you don't have $25 to go to an event, you're not going to be able to network with those people that were at the event.
I'm not arguing that. I've been there.
And
I'm not arguing that.
That's why it's always a safe alibi, right? Like, that's always a safe alibi.
It is, but it's not.
I've proven it wrong my whole life. I've been in rooms that I don't know how I got into, other than I was just willing to work for it.
So one of my coaches, who was homeless for 10 years, who now invests in over 200 companies and is a multimillionaire, did that from being homeless.
Right.
Could I do it? I don't know. It depends on how my brain works. Like, do I have that executive function? Do I have that? But she started attending things and going into board meetings when she had no more money than enough for a Snickers bar.
Right.
So my point is, we can argue the details all we want. My point is, we all have the resources and everyone started somewhere. So like my friend whose parents were very wealthy, they didn't just hand her money. What she had that other people didn't have was the money mindset. That's what she had.
Right.
But her parents made it earn her herself. So the point is, guys, the point isn't even money. See, we get caught up in the topics of money. The point isn't money, guys. The point is that money represents energy, and the mindset you have, the value you put on yourself and what you're doing and what you choose to do with that. So like when I was coaching business, the biggest hump for the women I coached was they would ask for a sale. They would sell something for someone else, but they would give all their stuff away for free. And energetically, I want to just, if you don't mind, I want to say something about that, because this is something that once I embarked on this journey myself and I was on the other side of it and I was dealing with people and employees who were like, oh, you guys in corporate just, yeah. And it's true. But the problem is that if you don't have, let me just say, an abundance mindset, you're where you are anyway. You're going to be where you are anyway, regardless of who you think is using you to make money. And so you have a choice. Do we need to balance everything out in the world? Yes. This is not a debate about money. I'm trying to share with you guys about energy and how you use it. What money does is it gives you time and freedom. That's it. That's it. So if you're down in the nitty gritty, I'm rescuing this. I want to help this person. I want to give aid and this to that and that. That's fine. But can you cover more ground if you weren't always running out of time? Yes. Money can buy you time by buying you resources and paying people to help. People who otherwise have not chosen to step across that threshold themselves. And they have every right to complain and say, well, she's only paying me $25 an hour. Well, okay. Then when, it sounds snooty when you hear people say, oh, well, then level up. But it is about leveling up. It's not just leveling up for money. It's putting yourself out there. It's getting out of your comfort zone. Let's say you don't care about money. You don't want to make money, but you have a message you want to share that you think is going to save lives. And you're terrified of getting out in front of people, but you need a voice. And so you write this book and you need help. You need to be able to afford to publish it. You need connections to get out there. You want to go do a TED Talk. Maybe you end up making money from that without even intending to. But the point is, and I heard Dr. Wayne Dyer say this, and I want to share this with everybody. Your soul is animating your body. It's not just in your body. It's also outside of your body, but it's animating it. The one thing that Dr. Dyer shared, which is so true, is that the soul is in a constant state of expansion. You incarnate to expand. So whatever that expansion means for you. So when I'm saying you're feeling alignment, or you're feeling at peace, you're feeling joy, or you're feeling love and abundance, like, for you, Chris, if you're feeling joy, abundance, love, whatever it is you're feeling, then okay, you can be like, yeah, I'm in alignment. I won't say on path, because we're always on our path. I'm in alignment. But if everything is hard, if you're always frustrated, if things aren't going well, guys, you can be like, okay, there's something off here.
Right.
Because the soul wants to expand. And what the human being tends to do is say, okay, I'm here now, or I'm stuck in, I've done, this is the exercise I did 30 years ago. Or, this is always how I've had my relationships. That means as a human, we have to also expand. And, so if you're not doing something every day, you guys have heard this 1,000 times, that is something out of your comfort zone. I don't care what it is. You're not expanding. And what happens is, a lot of times the money and the resources will follow that if you're not trapping your identity in something, right? If you're not trapping your identity in something. So anyway, guys, there's a lot of layers to this. Actually, Karen, money is freedom, and it is convenience. Yes, it makes things more convenient, but it's freedom. So I'm not preaching you guys go out and make money, but I think for people that don't have a certain level of money, I think you can't understand the other side of it. So be careful. And I'm not saying you're doing this, Karen, but be careful to understand and look at it neutrally. It's a tool, it's energy, and it's an extension of you. So if you are a person doesn't care about anyone else or anyone but yourself, and you just want to make money, money's going to make that worse. And that's okay. It can make it worse. The reason I loved being a business coach. I loved being a money manifesting coach. Loved it. But the point was, I was giving women the resources, like mentally, emotionally. I was helping them work through the mindset. And it was women that wouldn't have made money, most of them. It was women that had these dreams and visions that women tend to get really stuck in. We get in the feeling and this and that, and we prioritize in a way that doesn't build, it leaves us destitute or struggling because we're taking care of our children or our animals or our elders. And we always choose that, right? We do. And so there's a lot more women struggling for that, struggling with money, that end up alone. And like for me, I was in that position. I didn't have children. I was a white woman with no health issues. So guess what? Every loan, grant, whatever I'd gone for was. So I had to work on this on my own. And what happened was there was a point where I modified a course for a corporate group of women. Should not have done it. This was my poor money mindset coming back, right? This was my lacking, I don't have money mindset that I allowed to creep back in. And they took advantage of that. And I needed to learn it. But I slashed my prices in quarters, which of course, the more money you have, the more you have it allocated to other things, right? Donations, rescues, things you're helping, money you're building for good things, which is why I wanted to coach these women. Because these were the women in my mind that weren't just going to have money for money. They were going to do something. They were going to be those women that balanced out the world of people that misuse money, that get obsessed with money, that use money as, the root of all evil. Money is not the root of all evil, but that get so addicted to making money, they don't care about anything else. This was my vision, right? And yes, it can happen, but I learned some really good lessons here, because what happened is I had a client I'd taken to $1 million, and she wanted to bring on all this corporate group, and there were a lot of other things that were together with that. But the point is they all got in there. I gave them my time and my resources for a quarter of the price, what I really couldn't afford to do, but I did it. And then partway through, they got what they wanted. They got what they needed. And then they just became obsessed with the money part. Absolutely obsessed with the money part. They, it was like, oh, well, we can just throw people under the bus because it's just business. Immediately, almost immediately, as soon as each woman in her own business started making money, but all these guys it was the corporate group. And so I was like, whoa. So I took a step back. I took a big step back because those weren't the people I wanted to work with. And that's why you guys see me doing more general neutral work now. I work on the money mindset because there's issues on both sides of the fence. But I didn't want to be, I was seeing that some of those women that had come to me with these genuine, authentic, or so I thought, dreams, as soon as they tasted the money, the dream was out the door. So this is why some of you feel this skepticism towards money. This is why Chris is cautious about this, because all of us as humans, when you start making money and you feel that ease and you feel that freedom, it's easy to misuse it. And so now I'm very careful when I'm coaching. I was careful before, but I'm more careful now. When I'm coaching this stuff, there needs to be a balance in the world of people who have those resources to themselves, who are making money, who have the mental and emotional consciousness to utilize that energy properly. Because what it is it's a tremendous responsibility. You're either going to be stressing over not having money and the things you're worried about, or you're going to take the effort. I won't say stressing. You're going to take the effort to learn how to allocate those resources in a way that builds on itself, so that you don't have to worry about it. And we have a long journey for this as humans, but I think like Chris, like the path you're taking, I see you as being someone who you're going to work up that alignment, and that fruition will come from that.
Right.
And so, we each approach it differently.
Mm-hmm.
But guys, back to the identity thing, like, self-awareness is really the key here. how do we identify with our souls, with ourselves and our lives? There are certain things we can't get over. I mean, I'm never going to be taller than 5'4". I guess I could identify as being 6 foot, but that's not going to happen. So we have the physical things, but I think the ones that really have the impact on us, I'm not saying the physical doesn't, it does. But ones we can change daily are, what really you can do that through. What is your mindset? What are you thinking each day? What is your self-talk each day? How do you wake up? Do you wake up scrambled and panicked each morning? Or do you wake up enthusiastic and ready to start the day? That's one of the first things my mindset clients learn to transform is how they go to bed and how they wake up, because that's so, so important. And like for you, Chris, now that you're working, you got the center, you have a nice system going, and systems are very helpful as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and it all gets back to our relations, right? Like self-awareness is great, but if we're not aware of how the self affects others, it's hard to learn to discern.
I gotta interrupt you there, dude. You have to know yourself first.
Well, absolutely.
I love you to death and all your others community stuff you've got going on. But the truth of the matter is, if you don't know yourself and you don't have self-awareness, the community stuff isn't going to happen. Okay. It's just going to be a mess. Everyone in the community has to be, if you guys don't have self-awareness, you don't have anything. You won't understand why people are mistreating you. You won't understand why you're unhappy. You won't understand why you have an addiction. You won't understand why you can't change your habits. You won't be aware of the fact that you can choose your thoughts. You won't be aware of your words being connected to your thoughts. You won't get into that 95% of your mind you're unaware of. That has to come first. And even if you're talking about one person, if you're going to have a relationship with one person, if you got one person in a relationship and they're not self-aware, good luck.
Well, the first relation is yourself.
There you go.
So,
yes.
Perfect. Well, I mean, that pretty much wraps up today's show.
Except we have our calls to action and what we're doing. So, yeah. Chris, remind them where they can come down there to see you. Put the address in the comments or something, or website. Yeah. Chris is so humble. I'm getting on him about getting out there and sharing. And I love the humbleness, don't get me wrong, but people have to know you're there. They have to know that you're there. And so guys, we're here on Wednesdays. Please look up and like and follow our YouTube page. We're going to have some events coming up. We're working on some goodies for you guys, but you guys can go down to his center and, what do you offer there, Chris? Tell everybody what you offer.
Geez. I mean, it's focused on holistic recovery. So we have both steps, both working with somebody and working within the relationship of yourself through modalities such as the float tank, float therapy.
Which I will never do.
Yeah, isn't that funny? We have the steam sauna with the red light, and we can do cool herbal infusions with that to help with different ailments with your health, as well as ionic foot baths, and then we have what we would call the enhancement sessions, and that's where we're working with somebody else from coaching, guidance, mentorship, energy healing, massage, sound healing, crystal healing, tarot, the whole
I'm gonna have events down there, so it's
gonna
be cool.
And that's what we're looking to do, right? We're looking to hold space for everybody to step into their natural gifts and abilities, as human beings, and how do we relate to each other and our planet. I mean, that's the big vision of doing that, and it takes a lot of diversity to be able to discern, um, from all the options that, the 7 billion, 8 billion, whatever human souls that are here, um, all on a unique path, learning how to relate to themselves and each other. So may we find the compassion and the communication to be aware that when we are in an emotional state, whatever that one is, um, to be mindful of how we are projecting that energy and responding to that energy, because once energy is expressed, it cannot be taken back. So we have to learn from that, because a lot of times it's hard to ask for forgiveness or get forgiveness because it's something that someone has now decided is a wall or a boundary, and we don't have the opportunity to reconcile um, on the 3D realm, and that can make life a little more hard, um, when we're trying to channel from the infinite possibilities. So, but anyway, thank you again, Larkin, for your time and your expertise and everything that you are. I want to thank Karen for tuning in and sharing with us today, and all those that are going to check out the replay and share and all that stuff. Thank you so much for participating with us and helping us share this stuff and help gain awareness and attention from other channels that we don't have contact with right now. So thank you for that, in advance, because I know we're getting a lot of support um, externally, and I want to hold space for those people that are doing that with us. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. If you guys are wanting or needing an assessment and you want a free, I call it discovery call. I don't know what Chris
Same thing.
is saying. It's free, but if you're sincere and serious and you're maybe feeling stuck, you're never stuck, and you relate to one of us and you want a free discovery call, I know you can email me at larkinsreadings.com. I think Chris, I don't know where your email is available. I have it, but I don't know how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, it's just Chris at Enhancing Your World. I mean, everything's at Enhancing Your World for
Right,
me.
right.
Like,
He makes it easy. Yes.
you
That's available.
talk about systems, right? Like,
That's right.
I guess I'm such a control freak. I have to have my own thing,
Hey,
because everybody
systems are
changes
vital.
things. And
Yeah,
huh?
you have to. You have to keep it simple, and you have to make a system for people.
Right.
And also, guys, we're going to be putting out a weekly YouTube video that is not live, but sharing tidbits for healing and self-empowerment, and things that you guys can do each week. We'll be putting those out, and we'll let you know exactly when those will be released as well. So keep an eye on our YouTube page, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you so much. Much
Thanks,
love.
Chris.
Thank you.